Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Hope you have a great Valentine's Day planned today. And today I've got a great video of rose gourmand fragrances. Rose fragrances that feature gourmand notes, vanilla, chocolate, you name it, anything that would make the fragrance sweeter and sweeten it up and make it delicious. So I've got a top 13 list for you today of rose gourmands with a couple of bonus options. Find out what they are coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Sebastian. We're talking about rose gourmands. Are you a fan of this particular style of fragrance? I guess the first time I noticed this particular style was with a fragrance called Intense Cafe. I thought, wow, you can make a rose fragrance a gourmand. It hadn't been done before, and Montal has done a great job with it. I've actually left this off as a bonus option, but I've got the flanker of this in this list. Today you'll find out where it ends up. But yes, I do enjoy rose and I do enjoy gourmand notes, and the combination can be really, really great. So let's go ahead and get started at number 13. We're talking about DELOX from the house of TIZIANA TERENZI, this one right here. So this most likely is inspired by Montal's Intense Cafe, but you know, they've twisted it around a little bit and made it smell a bit different than what Intense Cafe smells like. Plus, it's an extrait de parfum, longer lasting, intense fragrance from the house of TIZIANA TERENZI. So if you like the idea of a rose gourmand and you're a fan of Intense Cafe, I highly recommend you try some of the fragrances I'm going to recommend to you today, because some do remind me of Intense Cafe, especially this one here. So this is rose, coffee, musk, honey, vanilla, hyacinth, amber, opoponax, cedar, and iris. You're going to notice that the rose is different as well compared with the DELOX versus Intense Cafe. So that's definitely one of the standout noticeable differences. And of course, the gourmand notes might not come in as much, but coffee might come in a bit more here. But either way, I think it's definitely worth mentioning. But it is at number 13. It's DELOX from the house of TIZIANA TERENZI. So next, another one that's kind of similar to Intense Cafe, but I feel like this one's definitely a lot more twist in a different direction compared to Intense Cafe, from the house of XERJOFF. It's from their collection of fragrances that are in the blue bottles, and this is called KBRIDGE Club, this one right here. So this notes are unpublished, but what we're getting from it is rose, some spices like coriander, there's vanilla in here, and of course caramel. So it doesn't have the note of milk like the Intense Cafe. And although also in Intense Cafe the milk note was not really credited, it just created a lactonic effect. Here we've got a bit more of a sticky lactonic creaminess from the caramel and vanilla. Creates a kind of a sticky syrupy effect against the rose and the spices that are in here. Again, this is the kind of notes I'm getting. I'm not getting much coffee with this one. Definitely, I think it's more of the combination of the gourmand notes with the rose, and the coffee might have just been left off because they've done that many times before. But either way, KBRIDGE Club from the house of XERJOFF. Check it out. So next one is not something that smells like Intense Cafe, but sort of an idea of rose and gourmand notes with tobacco this time. And we've got TABAC Rose from the house of BDK, this one right here. Are you familiar with this one? So this is created by Julien Rascanet, and he does some great work. I think he's got a couple of fragrances for the house of BDK. This features notes of chocolate, tobacco, rose, plums, patchouli, cinnamon, labdanum. Definitely does have the signature of Julien Rascanet. You kind of get an idea of a perfumer after you kind of like, you know, enjoy some of their fragrances and offerings, and you end up falling in love with something a lot. You get to learn that fragrance. And this is not one of my all-time favorites of Julien Rascanet's, but I can see his touch here. But it's chocolates, that dirtiness from the tobacco, the smokiness, rose, and of course you got spices and fruits coming in here with ambery notes. So it's a really, really great fragrance, but I enjoy the other ones a bit more, so obviously it's ranked here at number 11. BDK's TABAC Rose. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. Do let me know, put a comment down below. Moving on to the house of CARTHUSIA, it's TERRA Mia. So there was a fragrance that would have ended up on this list if it still was selling. It's called Café Tuberosa from Atelier Cologne. So this was one of my kind of... so Café Tuberosa, I should say, is kind of like Intense Cafe from the house of mental, but it didn't have that milkiness. It had more like a coffee grounds effect with rose and tuberose, maybe a little bit of chocolate thrown in as well. Here, it's kind of like Cafe Tuberosa, but it's going more nutty with hazelnuts. So it's a bit of a twist on that idea, removing the milkiness, adding more ground and drip coffee effect like espresso without the milk. And then in here, again, as I said, there's also the idea of nuts. So it's coffee, hazelnuts, vanilla, rose, amberwood, orange blossom, neroli, ambroxan, pink pepper, jasmine. Lots of other goodies that come in, but you know the idea of intense cafe, but removing that milkiness, creating a rosy, gourmand, nutty effect here, and it's quite delicious. It's not a favorite of mine as much as the Cafe Tuberosa used to be. Unfortunately, that sadly is discontinued, but I do have a fragrance in this list that's kind of taken the place of that fragrance. Thankfully, that's launched because really, really big fan of Cafe Tuberosa by Atelier Cologne. And again, the fragrance I'm going to talk to you about will be a great alternative, but this is somewhat of an alternative as well. So it's Terra Mia from the house of CARTHUSIA. Next, going to FEVE Gourmand. So this one does feature rose, but the rose is not as prominent in this one. It's more about a fragrance that smells like really delicious, decadent, kind of like chocolates that you buy at a high-end chocolate shop. Because to me, it smells like that. And it's definitely very similar to the original Gourmand Cocaine. I've heard people say it's not similar. To me, it smells quite similar. In fact, it's fairly identical. And I've been a big fan of Gourmand Cocaine, and I really enjoy this one as well. This, to me, I think if you gifted it to someone as a Valentine's Day present, to me, it's like gifting somebody a box of chocolates, because it really does smell like really high-end, decadent, really delicious chocolates with some fruits and boozy liqueur inside the chocolates. Only complaint I have about this fragrance of the original Gourmand Cocaine and this one, it's very subdued on me. So it's not loud. It has this softness about it, but as a smell, it's super fantastic. And I think it's the right kind of fragrance to gift someone. Perhaps they don't really like intense beast mode kind of big projecting fragrances. They will really like this one. But again, as a smell, I think this is the ultimate in a Valentine's Day scent to gift someone on Valentine's Day. But I'm ranking it here at number 9 because I don't like its subdued qualities of it. But either way, FEVE Gourmand is so delicious. I should say it's got cacao, chocolate, rum, spices, woods, patchouli, smoky tea, and rose. But yeah, really awesome stuff. Do also let me know if you are a fan of that fragrance FEVE Gourmand and what do you get from it? Does it act subdued on you? Because I know there's a lot of fans of it. And like Tobacco Honey from Guerlain, really big, in your face, massive cloud and things like that. But next to this fragrance, and even though this smell is so good, it just seems a bit weak. But yeah, so let me know if you guys experience the same thing and if I'm the only one that's experiencing that, because I've noticed that sometimes some fragrances, maybe because of chemistry, do smell kind of closer to the skin, and some people say, oh my god, that's the loudest fragrance I've ever worn. But moving on to the house of Tom Ford, it's Rose the Amalfi, this one right here. This is my favorite from the trio of rose fragrances that launched that were kind of like country themed. This is the Italy Amalfi Coast. Then we had the China, and we also had the Russia, which I believe it got discontinued. Rose the Amalfi to me is a gourmand-like fragrance without using the actual gourmand notes. At least I don't see any mentioned in here. There's definitely an almondy effect. So if you like the idea of rosy notes with like nutty, powdery notes, definitely check this one out. And we're getting the nutty notes from the heliotrope that's in here, which to me, always when you smell heliotrope in fragrances, you'll be reminded of almonds. And if you like that idea, look up fragrances featuring the heliotrope note. And heliotrope also has a powdery effect. So this fragrance is a powdery rose, almondy, floral, citrus combo. Really great, a delicious fragrance. And I wouldn't call this like a full-on gourmand, but it acts gourmand to me because of the heliotrope note. So it's Rose d'Amalfi from the house of Tom Ford. Next, we've got Oud Bouquet from the house of Lancôme. This one right here. And again, this has been a popular fragrance for a good almost 10 years. It used to be in a different bottle. Now it's in this bottle, and And I don't really know what's going on with this particular collection. I haven't seen it being hyped around, but this one still lingers on out there and people seem to still enjoy it. And it's a combination of oud, rose, praline, vanilla, guaiac, Copahu balm. So it's balsamic, it's woody, it's ambery, and it's gourmand notes for sure. It's the praline that's giving us the gourmand, smooth, creamy, chocolatey, kind of a sticky caramelly kind of a vibe here against the rose and the oud. And to me, the oud is not necessarily your intense, really funky ouds. This is more of a Western oud, and it's a subdued oud, I think. And, it's more gourmand to me. So Oud Bouquet from the house of Lancome, wonderful offering. Then moving on to the house of JUSBOX and another Julian Rascanet created fragrance. We've got Sirens and Sailors. Have you guys tried this one? So once again, we've got something that is maybe like a sort of an offspring of something like Intense Cafe, but in a good way and more of a rosy way. It doesn't have the milky lactonic qualities for one. It's a really delicious rose. It's lots of rose with vanilla. There's whiskey, there's rum absolute, osmanthus, peach, musk, patchouli, suede, and bergamot. And it smells so good on me, so good, but it's gourmand light. I think the rose just pretty much dominates. The booziness comes in, the vanilla, everything is the right amount except for the rose, just pretty much rules this fragrance. You've got to enjoy rose and the dabbling of the gourmand and boozy notes, and then also the fruits, because there's fruits in here as well. Not only the osmanthus is providing us like a stone fruity effect, but also the peaches are in here. So it's a really great fragrance. One other thing I should say about Sirens and Sailors, it does remind me a bit of Carioca Heart. Both of the fragrances are created by Julian Rascanet, and of course they're for the same brand. So if you like Carioca Heart and you miss Sirens and Sailors, definitely check this one out. It's more like a rosy take on something that's distantly related to Carioca Heart. And again, also don't forget, I mentioned Intense Cafe. It's so distant to reminding me of Intense Cafe. Maybe the idea might be like it more than anything that reminds you of it. So Sirens and Sailors, a really awesome Valentine's Day rose gourmand, I think, with not so much of a gourmand effect. But the next one is Super Gourmand from the House of Gallagher Fragrances. At number 5, it's Rosé All Day. Do you guys like this one? Rosé All Day to me is a rose gourmand that's nothing like Intense Cafe and those fragrances that smell like Intense Cafe. This to me is actually really delicious with a lot of apples in it as well. And there's an apple crisp effect happening in here with brown sugar, honey touches, and of course the rose. The rose is pretty prominent in this one. If you haven't tried this one, I think this is definitely one of the best from this house. And Daniel Gallagher, the perfumer behind this, did a really great job with this fragrance, I think. Apple crisp, honey, rose, brown sugar, patchouli, plums, metallic notes, vanilla, amber. It's so delicious, guys. If you like the idea of apple crisp, ever had it, tasted it, eaten it, loved it, and you want to smell like it with roses added and fruits and honey and sugar, definitely try Rosé All Day. So yummy, and it's definitely wonderful. The next fragrance we're talking about is from the house of Maison Francis Kurkdjian. It's Oud Satin Mood. And again, this to me, it's what the vanilla does to this fragrance that creates more of a like a gourmand effect. But to me, in the end, it also creates a makeup effect. Rose and violets together is giving me that like a lipstick vibe in here. I don't know if you guys get that from it, but more of a gourmand lipstick vibe. Oud is in here, but to me, out of all the ouds that Maison Francis Kurkdjian had ever released, this is the least oudy oud fragrance from this house. It's more of a gourmand sweet take on an oud fragrance, and most likely the most popular in this collection of fragrances as well. So in the end, it's very smooth. I like the smoothness in this one. It has benzoin and amber as well, along with the oud, the violets, the rose, and then of course the vanilla note in here. So it's a really delicious fragrance, and definitely a rose gourmand take on rose fragrance. So it's Oud Satin Mood. Wonderful offering from that house. And remember I said I have a great alternative for Café Tuberosa from the house of Atelier Cologne. Well, this was actually featured in my scent club at number 5, I believe. Was it number 5? Number 7, I should say. This is Oudgasm Café Oud from the house of Kayali. It's my favorite of the ouds. It's the least oud to me. This one then followed by Tobacco Oud, which is more tobacco and oud. This to me reminds me of Café Tuberosa, but with a bit of a oud twist. And there's a little bit of funk in here, but not quite. It's more gourmand. It's cappuccino, rose, geranium, oud vanilla, white musk, mandarin, bergamot, patchouli. It smells really, really great. And if you've been looking for a Cafe Tuberosa alternative, try it. Try a sample if you can, because it really does hint at it for me. Not identical, but totally there's that reminder. And I've been a big fan of Cafe Tuberosa. Saddened that the fact that it was discontinued. Also the fact that the brand Atelier Cologne pulled completely out of North America. That's another story. But yeah, if you're looking for a great alternative for Cafe Tuberosa, try Oudgasm Cafe Oud by K. I think it's quite delicious and a really, really great take on a rosy, gourmand fragrance, and this time with oud. So it's Cafe Oud, Oudgasm from the house of K. At number 2, we've got Ristretto Intense Cafe. Remember, I've mentioned that we've got Intense Cafe in the bonus section. I'll tell you all about that. But for me, this one's more of a real coffee effect with the Intense Cafe. The Intense Cafe didn't have that coffee smell. So what they've done here is amplified the coffee in here, and it really smells like coffee, milk, rose. It's like a real rose coffee latte kind of an effect here, and it's super delicious, and it's a great gourmand to wear on Valentine's Day, I think. So it's coffee, rose, vanilla. There's caramel here, musk, amber, woody notes. It's also quite intense, and I love the way it smells. And just when I got kind of bored of Intense Cafe, they launched this, and I was really reacquainted with the scent with the addition of the coffee, the Ristretto Espresso that's added to this. So really wonderful offering. At number 2, it's Ristretto Intense Cafe from the house of Montal. And finally, we've got Noir de Noir at number 1. That's from the house of Tom Ford. It's not necessarily uber gourmand. It's more of a chypre, but there's enough vanilla in here to sweeten things up and make it delicious and garnish compliments as well. It's rose patchouli, truffles, there's oud, saffron, there's vanilla, floral notes, and oak moss. Definitely one of the best fragrance DNAs that's ever been made. I think whoever made this, and I believe it's Harry Fremont and Jacques Cavalier. I could be wrong, but those two perfumers are attached to this fragrance. They've created one of the best smells ever, I think. It smells super amazing. Sad it's been a bit reformulated and thinned out, but to me, this is a wonderful offering and one of the best fragrances on Valentine's Day, I think. It's super sexy, really delicious, sweet enough to kind of categorize it as a gourmand, but not necessarily like an overdose in the gourmand section. It's more of a chypre with a patchouli oak moss, like a rose chypre effect. A really wonderful offering. So it's Noir de Noir, and that is at number 1, one of the best fragrances ever made, as I said, and I think one of the best Valentine's Day fragrances. Do let me know what you think about these fragrances, and let me know what you're going to be wearing on Valentine's Day. And if I didn't say it already, happy Valentine's Day. See you guys again. But if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. And as promised, I've got 2 fragrances here in the bonus section from sister houses. We've got Intense Cafe, the original, and we've got Roses Vanille from Mancera. I left these off because these have been around for a long time. It's the effect that I was going for, rosy, gourmand fragrances. And they've been around for a while, so I left them as bonus fragrances because everybody knows about them. The ones that are in the main list are not as popular as these 2. But to me, I've been a fan of Intense Cafe since 2014 when it first launched. And probably a year or 2 later, I discovered Roses Vanille. And I thought to myself, boy, these are very similar with different names. They are sister houses after all. So you've got that kind of lactonic quality in both of them. But I feel like in Intense Cafe, it's a bit more lactonic in comparison to Roses Vanille. But they're kind of just basically gourmand notes, ambery effect with lots of rose. Basically, that's what it is. They wear similar, they're not identical, similar effects, similar smells, and there's some minute differences between each other. But in the end, both of them are delicious, and I recommend them. And you can find these probably at the discounters for really heavily discounted prices. So I think if you are in the market for something like this, look for them at the discounters. In fact, I'll have links in the info box. I think they're both really, really great fragrances and definitely worth mentioning here as great options for a Valentine's Day Rose Gourmand. So that's Intense Cafe by Montal, and this is Mancera's Roses Vanille. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one. Goodbye.